Good evening, everyone. It is May 9th, 2019, not 18. And the Sharks and Blues meet once again in the Western Conference Final. So we welcome you to this very special Teal Town USA opening face-off as the Sharks and Blues get set to go. We've always had a long-standing rivalry, per se, with our friends from Let's Go Blues Radio, and we have a multitude of people to chat about this game, about this series, and where to go from here. But of course, we will also take your chats and comments in the chat. So do yourself a favor, like After Dark. If you want to be a part of the show, there are multiple ways to interact with Sharks and Blues fans in the YouTube chat on the page or the app. You can always do that either way. Of course, you can add us at Teal Town USA as well. So with me this evening, we'll say hello to guys that you are familiar with on this channel. First and foremost, Mr. Chris GWS.
I'm sorry, I've already seen this movie. I know how it ends. Sorry.
Wow. And joining me as well from beautiful Teal Town, USA, it is Sans Turtleneck, Mr. Kevin Lacey.
And the worst part is, I guess this will feed into them. All I'm thinking is, I hope this isn't the return favor for 2016. We need to just establish dominance as the Sharks have before and will again tonight. You know, whatever. Anyway, I'm Kevin Lacey. Thank you for having me on.
And with joining us from Let's Go Blues Radio, Mr. Kurt Price.
Thank you guys for having us on. I too am looking for I've seen this movie before. I do believe what is it, the year we won the President's Trophy, you guys took us out, and then there was a rematch following that where we took you guys out. So yeah, let's play this story again.
And also from Let's Go Radio, Bill.
Evening, folks. Thanks for having us on. And yes, Kurt, I think it was Bryce Salvador was the hero of that series, the rebound in the early 2000s. So yeah, we're definitely looking forward to getting the overall Lifetime series back to even. But Bryce Salvador is not going to help us. Not this time.
I do want to say, guys, I mean, I know everyone has been saying lately that the Sharks have the officials in their back pocket, but this was supposed to be 3-on-3 tonight, and you're already down a man, so I guess that theme's just going forward.
And once again, it's not the Sharks' fault.
Well, what's the old phrase? I can beat you with one hand tied behind my back. So we'll beat you with one arm, one of our three-legged. I don't know what we're talking. One of our three legs tied behind our back.
Let's start mixing metaphors right off the bat.
Yeah, however it goes. You know what I mean,
right? So here's the history from the Sharks and Blues, because this is now the sixth time these two teams will meet up. In 2000, as Kurt mentioned, the President's Trophy winning Blues lost 4-3 to the Sharks. The infamous Owen Nolan slap shot from the Blue Note. The year later, the Blues won 4-2 in revenge in a series we won't forget. Along with in 2004, the Sharks beat the Blues 4-1 as they went onward to the Western Final from there. The Blues would get revenge in 2012 when they beat the Sharks 4-1 in the Western quarterfinal, the quickest exit for the Sharks in their history. And of course, the one that's most recent in 2016, Sharks win the Western Conference in 6 games, knocking the Blues out in 4-2. So with that, guys, let's hand the reins over in this sense. The Sharks.
I think we got some beers of the show to get to first.
Oh, that's absolutely it. So with that, we'll start with our visitors, Mr. Kurt Price.
So borrowing a segment from our regular show where we do a beer of the week. Yeah, I got a local favorite here in Illinois. I'm just across the river from St. Louis. So this is from Alton, Illinois. It's an old bakery beer called Citrus Wheat, which is a old bakery. It's a really cool brewery. They were an old bread factory, old colonial bread factory back in the day. So and they've converted it to they went out of business a long time ago, and but they've converted it to a brewery, and it's a great food there and good beer. So there's my up to the camera there, Citrus Wheat. There we go. It's good stuff. Fruity, herbal, refreshing.
We'll go with Bill. Which was your choice?
So, in honor of our collaborative effort here tonight on the show, I picked up a collaboration between a local brewery, Four Hands, here in St. Louis. Very big fan favorite brewery here in St. Louis. They collaborated with Brasserie Dunham out of Canada to create it's called a Lekimos. It is an imperial stout with blueberries, rosemary, cocoa nibs, and cinnamon, aged in bourbon barrels. Very complex. Lots of stuff going on in here, just like I'm looking for from this show tonight and this series coming up.
So when we win our wager, you definitely have to send me one of those.
All right, that's that will be. We'll book that down as one of the bounty.
Is that when you guys win the wager in 2032? Is that the next time?
It'll be nice and barrel aged by then.
If we're going on the every 3 years thing, I guess that means we win in what, 2022?
That's math. I'm not gonna do math. Not tonight.
All right. Kevin, what are you rolling with?
The Anheuser-Busch favorite, Shock Top. That is my beer for the evening because it was the only thing left in the fridge. I would say I like some local favorites, but honestly, most of my favorites are from San Diego. So, boo goals, boo, beat the Barracuda. Can't have that. So instead, I go with the St. Louis choice of Shock Top. I don't know. I'm very confused, guys.
All right. Chris?
Well, I am going with San Diego beer because, shocker, I live in San Diego. I'm going with the Modern Times MT5 double dry hopped anniversary beer from my local favorite, Modern Times.
Dude, Modern Times is the best.
Excellent. And of course, for me, a leftover bottle of chum. Yes. It's only 2 years old. What's I know?
Eric poured it out and put water in there, actually.
Chris, you ignorant slut. How dare you?
Does it age well? I mean, the 2-year-old beer, does it age well?
Yes.
I got some fine notes of brandy, a little bit of white wine in there, and anyways, let's get in. Let's do that hockey.
All right, let's get at it. So, Sharks and Blues played 3 times. Sharks won 2 of them. One went into overtime. Great matchup overall, although I don't recall, guys, if Bennington played against San Jose, if I'm not mistaken.
That is something that I was just thinking about and didn't have in front of me. I'm not sure. I don't think they played the Sharks.
Yeah, they
wasn't. Yeah, one most of the meetings in the first half of the season.
Yeah, I think there was one meeting late in the season because it was the first time the Blues went out west and won all 3. But I think Jake might have started out there. So we're just going to start Jake against you guys and see how it goes.
In March 9th, it was the overtime 3-2 Sharks. So that was the last time. And I think then that would mean Bennington, I think, was in goal for that game.
That was our Teal USA Day, guys. Apparently, he was very upset that Bennington did not play in March 9th.
Yeah, I just pulled up the game log. He has not ever played the Sharks. Jake Allen played the last time these two teams met.
So yeah, if you guys want to start Jake Allen, I'm pretty okay with that. I remember all the great things you said about him last time we had you on here.
Those hold true to this day. He stopped 27 and 29 in that game and 909 save percentage. So stats don't sound terrible, but not good enough.
Yeah, we'll start Jake if you start Marty Jones from the Vegas series.
For sure. Oh, which one do you want? The one that started 1 through 4, or the guy that's been on a roll since Game 5?
The guy that started the series, because man, he reminded me of everything we thought bad about Jake Allen through that the first 4 games of that series. He just he didn't have it.
So, guys, let's kind of go over a recap of what happened when in St. Louis, because it was crazy and tumultuous roller coaster up and down. I'll let you guys have the reins in this, because it is probably one of the most craziest seasons a team can have in one season.
Yeah, you're that's kind of an understatement a little bit. They last place in the league on January 3rd, point wise. And they had played like 5 or 6 games fewer than a lot of the teams ahead of them. So, but so they were playing terrible hockey. Don't get me wrong, but point wise, they probably weren't quite the worst. Like everyone's saying, they had a lot of points, to get in hand. But still, with that said, they were near the bottom. And they made a goaltending change. And they and Berube had been had been the interim coach now for about a month. Things weren't going particularly well under him. They were kind of treading water, but they got it, and it's kind of like a light switch went off. It's so hard to even explain, because what was going wrong early in the season, defensive miscues, missed responsibilities in their own end, just awful puck possession, no transition game. The goaltending was awful from Allen for the most part, and so they were just playing bad hockey. And if you want to get even oversimplified a little bit, we've talked about this on our show, Bill and I and Jeff, quite a bit, about how confidence in goaltending can go light years. I mean, that's from speaking from past playing experience from us, that we've just, the goaltender you have in net can elevate your game just by knowing that if you're more confident in your goaltender, that creates confidence in your entire team. And it's not something you can manufacture. You can't manufacture confidence. You just can't create it on your own. It has to just develop on its own. So
we definitely know about that, Kurt.
Yeah, no, and it's something that was just crazy to watch develop. It left a lot of us kind of scratching our heads, like, what's going on? Are they for real now? What is it? Which team is this? Because I think in December, late December, we gave up on this team. We're like, this is who they are. I mean, we're over 2.5 months, 3 months into the season, and this is who this team is. But they were. It was a lot of fun in the second half, and then when it got to the point where they were kind of in the playoff or picture in the hunt, then it got exciting. And the 11-game win streak, which is a new franchise record, was unbelievable. Just one more, story for this season. So, and the goaltending was the stable factor for this team. You stabilized goaltending, everything else kind of fell into place. And they just, to quite simply put it, they just played a lot better.
Kurt, can I ask you, or both of you guys actually, can I ask you, do you think it was more Binnington coming in and taking the reins in net than it was Berube coming in and taking the reins behind the bench from Mike Yeo?
I mean, I quite honestly, I think it's those two factors, along with the team finally gelling. And there was a lot of roster turnover. I mean, we brought in a lot of guys from outside the organization, and O'Reilly, Bozak, Maroon, and it took a while for them to come together. But I think Mike Yeo couldn't coach his way out of a wet paper bag. Guys, just he didn't have a clue on how to motivate the team. And when he was gone, it took Berube a while to, kind of get a baseline understanding of what he has and the players, to understand who he is and how he motivated. And then he finally makes, we finally had the right circumstance by which to say, you know what, Jake, you're not getting it done. We're going with somebody else. You know, Bennington, we've had this long running joke. Like he was a punchline on our show for a year and a half, you know, hashtag why not Bennington. And it was a joke because every time he'd come into the game, it was in relief, and you know he never got a sniff, and so he was kind of written off. Everybody was expecting Billy Huso to come in and take over after Jake Allen, you know, finally completely had shat the bed. But it just worked out that you know, we had got rid of Chad Johnson. He was brought in to replace Carter Hutton, who had been a remarkable backup and turned into a 1B kind of goalie. Chad Johnson wasn't the answer. They waived him. He winds up in Anaheim. We have a goaltending vacancy. We bring in Bennington. He gets the start in Philadelphia, pitches a shutout in game 1, and the rest is history.
Why was it Bennington? Why was it not Huso? Because Bennington at one time was a goalie who was thought to be NHL caliber, and then Huso came in. Everyone forgot about Bennington. Why didn't Huso get the call up?
I mean, he had some injury issues, but he also was he just wasn't having the best of seasons. And they didn't want to bring him up and expose him. So, you know, I think it was kind of a gamble with Bennington, you know, in terms of, you know, where we're taking this risk. It's almost a bit of a throwaway call up. We're going to call him up and see, you know, if he can do anything. And it turns out he's a damn good NHL goalie.
He was having a great season in the AHL. So, I mean, and he earned the call up. Huso, like Bill said, did not. The Blues were probably hoping that it would pan out differently this year with the plan they had in place for Huso to be the eventual guy. Because there was some talk about Huso backing up Allen this season, coming in the season. That was like bantered around a bit, but you know, he wasn't quite ready. So, but Allen, Bennington had the last 2 seasons. He was fantastic in East Coast. Where was he, Bill?
He played for Providence. He was
he got assigned on loan to Providence.
Yeah,
because you had so many goalies last year,
right?
Yeah, right, and so many goalies and not a minor league affiliate,
and Vegas is too. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And he played well and he earned it, and he was called up. So I think if they called up Huso, that would have been a huge slap in the face to Bennington, and people have been like, "Whoa, Huso's having a terrible." I mean, that doesn't make any sense. So I think it was just a fact that he was playing pretty good hockey and he got a shot, and he'd had a lot of experience in pro hockey. He's 25 years old, so it's not like he's 21 and he's fresh out of juniors or something. He's had 5 years of pro hockey, so he's had a lot of experience with some pretty good hockey in front of him.
So now imagine your goaltending situation changes from game 4 to game 5 in a series when you think all is lost, because that was our tale this season.
Yeah, I mean, watching that first round, Jones, I have a cousin who's there in San Jose, and he's a huge Sharks fan, lapsed Blues fan, I shall call him. He grew up here and moved out there, and right around the time the Sharks came into the league, so he's been there a long time. But texting back and forth during that first part of that series, there was absolutely no confidence in Jones, and it felt to me just like how we had gotten to the point we had gotten to with Jake Allen.
But you know what, though, with Jones, I mean, Jones has had a history of he has success on his side in his history. Allen never had that. I mean, Jones took the Sharks to the finals in 2016. So I mean, he's proven he's capable of playing at that level. At least to back a team at that level. So, I mean, and Allen never even. I mean, Allen. It's funny because the folks that support Allen, we've talked about this to death on our show. For whatever reason, there's a small faction of people that just like Allen and want him to be the goalie. I don't get it. but for whatever reason, it's like they don't have the team's best interest in mind.
Right.
But
Or they're the Russian bot accounts of Blues fandom.
right.
There was a lot of back and forth within the fan base about Jones, and I think, like you said, he has shown in the past he has that gear where he can get locked in and play really, really well. And we were waiting all season. We're like, oh, he'll get it. And it was like he waited until the very last second to pull it out and finally start playing like the Jones we've seen in the past. Because, I mean, he waits one more game to start playing like that. It's too late. So it was good to, I mean, since game 5, he has been right on point. I've had maybe 1 or 2 goals where I'm like, don't like that. But over 10 games, you can accept 1 or 2 not good goals. It's when, it's every night. It was guaranteed there's at least 1, even 2 goals that were like, no, you should have had that, buddy. Come on. Especially when the defense is being shaky. Like you can't have any of those ones you should have had go in. So it was I mean, we were pretty much all like, okay, wrap it up, season's over, it's done. I don't even know what that's like watching that from afar. What was your guys' perspective on the Vegas series?
I don't know, Kurt, you want to take that?
I didn't watch a ton of the Vegas series. I watched bits and pieces. I of course watched the Game 7, the infamous Game 7 that the whole world knew about. So and I did make a point to watch your guys' post game show after that game. I was like, I got to hear what they got to say about this. So that was quite interesting. And it reminded that was a flashback to what the Blues and Kings went through. The Blues did to the Kings. They scored 4 power play goals on a 5-minute major when Courtnall ran over Jamie Storr, and the Blues ended up winning that game and won the series in a sweep. So it was I was on the treadmill watching it, and I'm like, this is amazing, this is fantastic. What's going on? Now, whether or not that should have been a 5-minute major, that's a whole other show to talk about, I'm sure. And you guys have, I'm sure, discussed that quite a bit.
Oh yeah, we've re-legislated that one quite a few times, and hopefully, for technical reasons, hopefully Jeff can hear us. Can you hear all of us, Jeff? Because Google Hangouts are the best.
Yeah. Yes, I can. I can hear you guys. We're talking. What sport are we talking about tonight?
Lacrosse.
Okay, great. Yeah, I think Notre Dame's got a good team this year.
I think
Sorry, I'm more of an Aussie rules football kind of guy.
Sorry, I'm a little late here, boys. I've the joys of parenting. For some reason, in the middle of May, my son decides to come down with a little flu bug tonight. So, but he's fast asleep, and if he wakes up, that's mom's problem.
And after the crap you gave me on Twitter about not inviting you,
I know. At the minute that I looked and saw the time, and it was like 8:50. I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna catch so much crap for this.
Well, good to have you here, Jeff. One of those. So let's get into it. For the offense, your forwards, I mean, everybody will jump to Vladimir Tarasenko, Ryan O'Reilly, the guy the Sharks traded away essentially in the Bill Guerin trade. Perron is back again with the Blues. And of course, I don't know where Patrick Maroon. So, guys, tell me, what are you looking like at your forwards from our fellow Sharks fans in regards to what is it about these forwards? And because there's going to be comparisons between this year and 2016, how do they shape up?
Well, for me, this is sorry, Kurt. Since I'm here now, I'm just going to talk the whole time.
Okay? Yeah, go ahead.
He's going to dominate now.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I'm taking over.
We're used to this.
Buckle up, guys.
In terms of the 2016 team, and obviously everyone in the NHL, the NHL has made sure that everybody knows the Blues' story where they've come from this whole season since January 3rd. It's been a ride. And not only that, and I'm sure you guys probably already touched on this a little bit going into the season.
We did.
We all thought, of course, the late guy comes in and starts, let's rehash everything that's already gone on. But no,
we've literally covered everything already, bro. You're just recapping now.
Yeah, right. Good. That's what I'm good at. I've actually been listening the whole time because I was like, okay, I don't know what I'm going to talk about, so I'm just going to piggyback off everything they already said. No, it's been interesting, really, and you think about the 2016 team, and this is something that that we've actually already we discussed last night on our show, that compared to the 2016 team, for me personally, the last team, and you guys may remember this, that I really believed had a chance was 2001. That was the year the Blues beat the Sharks in the first round, went to the Western Final, lost to the Ray Bourque-led Colorado Avalanche on their way to winning the Cup. That was the last time. And I really said, I just don't think this franchise is ever going to do it. They're never going to put another team on the ice like that. So you look at the 2016 team and you say, these guys were great. They had the big bodies up front. They had the defense. They even had the goaltending in Brian Elliott. But I never really believed that team was Stanley Cup hopefuls. There's just something not there. There was a lack in goal scoring. Listen, I love Brian Elliott, but he never really was a Stanley Cup caliber goaltender when you really think about it, even at his height. But there's just something about this team this year. Jordan Binnington seems like the real deal at this point. You asked about the forwards, Eric. They've got guys that are contributing that they didn't have before. I mean, this team has always been known as a Tarasenko-led team. And now, not only Tarasenko not really having to get on the scoreboard every single night, you got a guy like Jaden Schwartz who has really stepped his game up. David Perron, he's had his troubles, but he's a good, solid player for the Blues. Braden Shen, upcoming free agent, he has been phenomenal for this team. And then you got the guys on the back end like Vince Dunn, Colton Parayko. They're all contributing. And there's a reason this team, its offense is driven by its defense. They have guys just like San Jose who can just beat you and burn you from all ends of the rink everywhere, because they've just got guys that are willing to drive it to the net. And then they got guys like Pat Maroon who's going to bang in the rebound.
There's all the things that Jeff mentioned are true. And plus, to add to that, because this franchise has had some phenomenal teams in the past. They've had teams riddled with Hall of Famers, especially in the early 2000s. But and like Jeff said, what feels different about this team, or what is different about this team, is that there were a couple games this year already in the playoffs that previous Blues teams in different years, for whatever reason, would have lost. I mean, as well as they would have played, or as stacked as the roster may have been, they would have lost. They would have lost Game 7 against Dallas. There's no way, because there were chances that I'll just say this: the puck has been bouncing the Blues' way at the right time in the playoffs so far. And I've said this on our show a number of times, and this is not rocket surgery at all. But what you need in the playoffs to win is you need goaltending. Your team obviously needs to play well. Okay, no kidding. But you got to be lucky as well. And the Blues and all three of those things need to fall into place for a team to go the distance. And the Blues in the past, they have had two of those elements, never three, to get all the way to the Cup. And this year, they've had goaltending before. They haven't had the luck, or they haven't had the goaltending, a great team in front of them. But they just haven't had all three. And this year they've had the puck bounce their way, especially against the Stars in Game 7, even though they dominated that game almost start to finish. Overtime was a little more even, but that puck, there were at least three pucks that easily could have been in the back of the Blues net if the puck doesn't bounce funny off of the Dallas Stars stick with an open net almost. So that
Jimmy Benn,
Yep.
Rupe Hintz, and
Cogliano.
Cogliano with
Yep.
a big one.
Yep.
Tried to backhand off the toe of the blade and it fluttered wide.
I thought
Yeah.
that was,
Something that I love that Bill said last night on our show was, it's funny because the whole game we talked about what we were feeling. We were trying to recap not only the game itself, but like people who have watched this team for generations, and you finally you keep saying, okay, how are they going to screw it up? You look at the the goal that went off the official. Rupe Hintz. That was a play that I would have said last year that there it is. There's the dagger. That's the goal that's going to lead to this team losing in game 7. But there's just something different. And it's so funny to watch Blues fans react. I know you guys deal with the same probably with your listeners, people who just instantly are, okay, this team's done, or they win a game. Okay, they're going all the way to the cup. It's so dramatic, but for Blues fans who've been through this so many times, it's so funny to just see these people. Well, there it is. That's it. This game is definitely over. But this team just has the resolve to keep coming back, keep fighting, and never give up on the play, which is why we've seen so many dramatic games already in the playoffs when they were down by a couple goals or so. They still come back and win the game.
Yeah,
this is entirely familiar to us as Sharks fans. Trust me, like everything you say, you could just swap out the names, swap out the teams, and it's the same exact thing we've heard for years around here. Puck guy, I'm sure, will start nodding his head because he knows we've been through. Yeah, like we're basically like the Blues, just our franchise is not as old. Like we've had a lot of the same history of like, there's the dagger, there's the thing. Oh, they're down 3-1. It's over. They never came back from 3-1 in franchise history. Most teams don't come back from 3-1. So, of course, they're not going to come back from 3-1, especially when, we don't have goaltending. We don't have bounces. So, there it is. But this year has been the year of, hey, we've actually managed to get the things we need at the right time. So, I think we all know exactly what you're talking about.
including questionable officiating at the end in Game 7.
Yeah, the questionable officiating has to go your way generally to win the Stanley Cup.
Here it does.
That is one of those X factors.
Yep.
Kevin, you wanted to chime in on really something on what Jeff said.
Well, I just wanted to say, because Jeff was talking about how this is like a team of destiny, and that's where I do have the biggest concern for the Sharks in this series, because I relate this to the mirror image of 2016, and hopefully for Sharks fans, not the mirror reflection of 2016, because in that run that year, you had the Blues, who obviously have not been in the Cup Finals in an eternity, and the Sharks, who had never been in the Cup Finals, and both teams' fan bases felt like this is our year. And I try to play a neutral part as best as I can. And that year I was like, no, sorry, St. Louis, this really is our year. But now going into this year, the way the Sharks have been just a little bit inconsistent, as much as everything has worked out to where here we are now, conference finals, I do kind of feel what you're saying, Jeff, about maybe this is your destiny year. I know the Teal Town fans. Oh, see, and now the Teal Town banner just
see what happened?
So apparently that's a sign. Ugh. But
Wow, Kevin, I can't believe you just did that.
That is awesome. Okay, let's talk about that wager now.
Yeah.
So it's funny though. Actually, I would counter what Kevin says to the fact that in 2016, from the Sharks side, they slayed their dragon, the Kings. This year, they slayed their dragon, the Knights. Both teams, respectively, had that given Sharks team's number. A little more dramatic fashion this year. And then they had the back and forth series with Nashville. This time they had that's where the home team won every game. This year it was every other game was won by by a different team. So there are some parallels though between that Sharks team and this year's Sharks team though, actually.
Yeah, I would completely agree with you on that one. I think there's Sharks have had great success in this year where they just normally they kind of like have their ups and downs, which they've had, but I think ever since they beat the Knights in Game 5, that's where they've kind of jumped on, and it's kind of been like a unison effort. Although being said, where's Evander Kane been in last round? He's had a little bit of a tough time. Kevin LeBanc has been all right. Jumbo wasn't as great in the conference semis. I'm sorry, the conference second round, I guess is what they're calling it now. But there just happened to be somebody there, like a Barclay Goodrow we saw in Game 7 of round 1. They just find a way to find somebody to get it done.
Yeah, what I loved about you mentioned Goudreau in Game 7 against the Knights. That was something I remember the announcers even saying, like, man, the Sharks, they're rolling 3 lines right now. They kind of wanted to see that 4th line step out and do something. And lo and behold, there's Goudreau stepping out, making the big play and winning the series for the team. And, it's funny because I look at the Sharks roster and I say they can roll 4 lines. Now, maybe you guys disagree, but I love the Sharks as 4th line, and that's how I feel about the Blues too, which is why this is going to be such an intriguing series, because that Blues' 4th line, Alexander Steen is a guy who has stepped up big in the playoffs before. Ivan Barbashev is one heck of a skater. And you got other guys that are stepping in that other spot, like Oscar Sundqvist, who's had ups and downs this playoff already. So just up and down the lineup, this is just an interesting matchup for both teams because, in my opinion, I think you can roll out all 4 lines at any time, and they're all going to be a threat to score.
Yeah, I think the 5-on-5 scoring in the playoffs for both teams is dead even right now, 25 goals apiece. So I think that's kind of the reflects on what you just said there, Jeff. That the scoring is, they can roll 4 lines. Both teams can, and 5-on-5 scoring has been even. Granted, the Sharks will play one more game, but I think in this series, I think that the special teams are interesting in a sense that both teams' power plays aren't doing a whole lot. They're like separated by a percentage point. Blues are 17 point something. Sharks are 18 point something for the entire playoff so far. What interests me about the penalty kill numbers is that and any stats we talk about, I'm not a big fan of taking stats from one series to another in the playoffs and saying that's how it's going to be in the next round, because you never really know, because really it's when you think about it, it's a small sample size in the playoffs where you've played 2 different teams so far. So I mean, you're playing a completely different team in a series and with different different matchups, different players, different schemes. So you never know how over the course of a series the numbers are going to play out as they did in the previous rounds. But the penalty kill, the Sharks have been shorthanded 52 times so far in the playoffs, which is substantially more than the Blues. The Blues have been shorthanded 28 times. So I think with if the Blues power play does accelerate and kick in, which has not shown a whole lot of life as far as production goes. They've looked good at times, but they haven't really produced a whole lot. If they can get a few goals on the power play, or even just hang around 20%, if the Sharks continue to take the amount of penalties they have in the past, do you guys see that as a possible problem? Because if the Blues are getting 4 or 5 power plays a game compared to the Sharks 2 or 3, that could be the difference in a goal or maybe a 2 a game, and it could be the difference in a game or 2 in the series.
Yeah, I completely agree. They got to stay disciplined. Good news is they don't have Roman Polak this time. Which I was like almost waiting for him to score like the game-winning goal in one of the games against you guys. I would just would have baked my noodle on that one. But yeah, you're right. I mean, to have the team just go and just be taking stupid penalties. And granted, a lot of those stupid penalties were against Vegas, where they were just falling apart like crazy.
That's the other thing about when you
It's
say
one of those
small
things
sample.
that I would definitely have a concern about.
Eric, and the other thing is the fact that Peter DeBoer has been so reluctant to play the third defense pair, if we even have a pair. It's between 4 and 5 defensemen who play the whole game. And if the Sharks get into penalty trouble, I mean, that's just further wear and tear on the back end.
Yeah, and that's where what Kurt said about small sample size comes in too, because if you look at the Sharks for the last 10 games versus the last 14, you're going to see a big disparity in those averages, because 3 of those games against Vegas heavily tilted those stats, especially Jones' stats. Like, Jones has been a completely different player for the last 10 games. I'd say most of the team in front of him has been pretty consistent. I would say the defense has gotten tighter in front of him. So that's where the whole small sample size thing comes in, though. One set of 4 games like that could weigh in one direction and deceive you completely about what's actually going on.
Right. And that's why I brought it up, because but really, I mean, when we talk about, the upcoming series and how both teams are playing, how else do you talk about an upcoming series? You have to. It sounds. I say the small sample size because it is a thing, but then again, how else are you going to compare the teams in the playoffs so far? So I mean, it's like a
It's where I think you appeal more to the events than the averages, because you look at averages over 14 games, they can be very deceptive. Sure. It's more, I would say more of like, what was the over, this is where I would be a proponent of the eye test, when everyone knows I am Mr. Stats. I love my stats.
Well, the last, let's talk about small sample sizes. Jones has played much better recently. If you go small sample size, last 4 games, Bennington has been phenomenal. Last 4, 5, 6 games, but if you go last 4 games, he's got a 1.83 GAA, 928 save percentage. And Jones has been better too. It's last 4 games is 2.24 and 913. But everyone's talking about Jones, how he's turned it around, probably because he has had the greater turnaround in the playoffs. Bennington was really good. Had a game where he allowed 6 goals against Winnipeg. Not his fault whatsoever, really. But I guess the turnaround for Jones is the story, as opposed to Bennington playing, I guess, better early on, and then really playing well the last 3-4 games of the Dallas series.
I definitely think Bennington will get the respect. Like, if he plays well again here in yet another round. I know that last night on Teal Town After Dark, for example, some of the folks were saying, well, the Blues were just really hot. And to me, I'm like, for 5 months, like you can get hot. Look at Carolina. Carolina's a hot team. I like Carolina a lot, but they've been a hot team in the playoffs. The Blues have been doing this since, like you guys said, since around Christmas time. So, and Bennington's been there for most of it. So if Bennington puts up another strong showing, he'll get the following.
Well, that was the knock on the Blues there in about February time was, okay, this team's just peaking at the wrong time. But like I said earlier, and apparently like you guys talked about early in the show, we were expecting this team to be way better than what it was to start the year. And, obviously the run they went on, the 11-game winning streak, that's not sustainable, but that was closer to the play we believed this team could have. And you're seeing it now. I mean, Dallas put up a great series against the Blues. I thought way better than their series in 2016 against the Blues. And the Blues just they outmatched them when their backs were against the wall. They played their best hockey. Game 6 and then Game 7, the Blues looked like the better team. And obviously Ben Bishop had a great Game 7, but the Blues' resolve was just never say die, never give up. And it made it such an interesting Game 7. And now I'm really interested to see how they start the San Jose series.
Right. And, talking about the Blues resolve and Bennington in general, going back even to the series against Winnipeg, the Blues were so hot and cold early in that series. And the away team won every game until Game 6. And I was at the 6-3 drubbing that Sunday night, that the game 3 it was, and the Blues looked awful, and that was really the first time like Bennington stood on his head in the first period, and after that it seemed like he kind of wore down and was a little bit pedestrian, but after that he bounced back, had a they lost the next game, wasn't nearly as bad. A couple bounces go the Blues' way, maybe they win it, but he bounced back. He had the resolve. Blues looked awful again. I was at game 4, or no, which game was it? Against the Stars, where game 5 when they got booed off the ice in the second period. They were just god awful. Bennington kept them in the game as best he could. At the end of the game, it was 2-1. Bennington gets the credit, but Bishop was getting the accolades. He was the better goalie. And then going into game 7, Bishop, that was the best game I have seen a goalie play in St. Louis in a very long time by Ben Bishop. And Bennington he faced almost I guess a little less than half the shots that Bishop did at the end of the game, but they were so many huge key moment saves. He stayed with him stride for stride. At the end of the game, the Blues were able to like you said, have the resolve to overcome Bishop's stellar play and win it. But man, I really think that what Bennington has proven to this point, and what should be the main goalie narrative in this series, is that the Blues have a legit goalie, and I would say the Blues have the edge in goaltending going into the series.
Funny saying that, isn't it? I mean, you think about just a couple weeks ago, people were saying, okay, is this an Andrew Hammond scenario for Bennington, or is this the real deal? And it's funny because every time I get in a serious discussion about Bennington, I always preface it with, well, I don't want to talk too soon, but it's like, when can I stop saying that? When can we just accept that this might be the goalie Jordan Bennington is? This kid may seem like a surprise to even Blues fans, but I don't know why he was buried so hard in the Blues system, because he's always put up good numbers. He's proven at the AHL level that he's capable, and he just needed a start in the NHL. And that was something we talked about on our show, was if only you could give this guy a start, because they kept putting him in when Allen would screw up, and it just wasn't fair to him. And I was like, just give the kid a start. Let's see what he can do when he knows he's going to be the starter. And since that day against Philadelphia, when he had a shutout in his first ever start, he's never looked back.
I completely agree. Coming into the chat, we had, should the Blues be concerned about the advantage at defenseman in alignment?
Well, you want to?
Go ahead.
I was going to say, as far as I assume they mean offensive production from the top end defensemen. I think the Blues are quite good defensively.
I agree.
As far as offensive production, the Sharks have, they have a couple of guys who are gonna walk down. I get it, but to be honest, I mean, I think the Blues might have the best skating defenseman on both rosters. Parayko, he's quick as hell, huge, wingspan's ridiculous, and has got the massive shot, broken 2 ankles so far in the playoffs. So I'm concerned as anybody is about Burns and Carlson, the two-headed monster from on the blue line, but I think. I don't think the Blues are necessarily running at a deficit. The defense as a whole, I think the Blues are pretty well balanced. Pietrangelo, he's up and down with us on our show. He can have a great game and he can have a bad game. I don't think that gets enough play nationally. I'm not sure what I think Jeff and Bill kind of agree with that, but he can look great and he can look bad. It's just you never know which Pietrangelo's going to show up. Parayko's, I love his game for the most part. Dunn defensively is can be a liability at times, but his offensive skills are extremely valuable.
How has Vince Dunn been this season? Because nationally, I've heard a lot of discredit for him after having a strong rookie year. So I'm just curious to hear what your guys' thoughts as to him. Because now here in the playoffs, all of a sudden people are talking about him being a god, and I'm like, wow! All season they buried this guy. The media buried this guy. So
yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Vince Dunn, it kind of like Petrangelo, is kind of hot and cold. You look at it right now, and you see the numbers. You see, and we were just talking about this last night. Game 7. One of the best games he's ever played as a St. Louis Blue. I mean, he was up and down the ice. He had so many chances. Game 6 too. He looked fantastic. And I think Kevin Shattenkirk, when I see him, that's probably the best comparison. Shattenkirk could make a really good defensive play, but then the very next play, just turn the puck over in the slot. I mean, it was mind-numbing how much it hurt to watch some of the stuff that he did. But then he would just skate it up ice and have the greatest play that you could imagine a defenseman doing. And Vince Dunn's a very similar player. When he's on his game, he is very hard to stop in the neutral zone from skating the puck up. But defensively, he can definitely be lacking. But lately, he has been on his game.
As far as the turnovers go with Dunn, and what I think, he handles the puck more than most defensemen, I think. And to be fair with him, if the more you handle the puck, you're going to turn the puck over more. I mean, the odds are. So maybe I'm trying to make excuses for the occasional turnover for Dunn, which it happens. But I think we can agree maybe that his upside is worth him being out there, no question. So
I have a chat question, then we're going to go around the horn with a particular topic. With chat question for one of the guys on the Blues side here. How is the Blues PK, PP from your perspective? Also, generally, what's their 5-on-5 play like? I mean, the numbers can say one thing, but what's your guys' perspective on each of those respective things?
So, as far as the power play goes, the Stars completely shut them down after Game 1. I mean, Tarasenko had the 2 power play goals in that series, but that was it. I mean, that they were 2 for 24. I mean, the Stars were dominant on the PK, and I think the Blues power play is susceptible to a high pressing, defensively structured team. So it's. The Blues can't rely on the power play to get them through any series. They have to rely on the 5-on-5 play and a pretty stout penalty kill.
San Jose's penalty kill for the playoffs so far is 80.8%. So it's not stellar. I mean, it's better than the Blues. The Blues penalty kill is 75%, so a little better than the Blues. So and Dallas's PK was, they didn't allow a power play goal in the first round at all. And then they allowed 2 against the Blues. So, but they still shut us down, like Bill said. So, I think it'll be interesting to see how, like I said earlier about special teams, how that plays out over this series.
Yeah, I'm not sure how it's going to affect the series. So, just kind of going around the horn, let's just do 2, one each. What would each of you guys say is kind of the X factor or a difference maker for each team? And then we'll probably after that, we'll get around to actual predictions. Let's start on the Blues side. So if you pick something for each team, start with you, Kurt. What do you think?
X factor for the Blues. I mean, I've always been a huge proponent of goaltending wins and defense goaltending wins in playoffs, but defense is goaltending is the most important position on the ice, and the Blues roll with Binnington. So I mean, they're gonna go with how he goes. If he plays well, really well, the Blues are probably going to win some games and have a really good shot at winning this series. I think with the as far as the Sharks are concerned, I think with the Blues, as far as what maybe they have to look out for, I guess I'll attack it this way. Is they were what the top scoring team? Second or third scoring team?
I believe they were tied for second, if I recall correctly, after Tampa Bay.
Okay, so I'm interested, really curious to see how Bennington and the Blues D tries to shut down the Sharks offense, because mentioned before, the 5-on-5 play is 25 goals aside for the playoffs so far, and the penalty kill percentage is about the same. So based on the small sample size we're talking about in the playoffs, offense seems fairly similar as far as production goes, but regular season, the Sharks were vastly superior offensively. So that's something the Blues would, I'd imagine, have to look out for, is just keeping San Jose, their offense at bay, to be honest.
If you worry about their 5-on-5 play, you definitely have to worry about their 5-minute power play. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because one's coming, right?
Yeah. You know what? If we're the team of destiny, you never know. Bill, what's your take on this?
Let me unmute my microphone here. So I would say my X factor going into this series is going to be secondary scoring. And I think two players on the Blues are emblematic of that. And Jaden Schwartz, he's playing top line minutes now. But given how little he produced during the regular season, I still consider him as providing secondary scoring at this point. But I think the true touchstone for that secondary scoring is Pat Maroon. I mean, he had 2 game-winning goals in the Stars series. He, local boy does good. It's everybody's feel-good story. But he emerged in that second round, and I think if he's on the board, the Sharks are in trouble.
Yeah, I mean, I'll add to that and say for sure Pat Maroon is definitely somebody. Again, you look early in the season, we had a talk on our show. Should they just put Pat Maroon on waivers, because he was not the guy that the Blues thought they were getting, and maybe it was injuries, maybe it was I don't know, whatever it was, maybe it was the honeymoon ending of coming back home. But he has looked fantastic the last 2 to 3 months. And he was a huge factor. Now, for me, the X factor that I'll say that I'm going to touch on is the overall defense. I think both teams are pretty evenly matched defensively. We were talking last night about we're just kind of hoping Tarasenko breaks out in this series, but remember, Vlasic had his number in 2016 and kept him off the score sheet for except I think the game 6 that they played. And that was like in the
period of that game 6.
Yeah, he had 2 goals, I think, in like the last 8 minutes of the game or something. Yep. But yeah, it's gonna be the defense. It's gonna be, because that's been the problem. We've talked about it. I think Bill mentioned it earlier, that there was just so much hot and cold going on in the Winnipeg series, and honestly, even again in the Dallas series, because this defense was just leaving guys wide open. I mean, if you watch Game 5, the game that Bill mentioned, the Blues were booed off the ice in the first period, Rupe Hintz had more room than I've ever seen a guy have in the playoffs. And guys were just coming in on 2-on-1s. There was, I think, 5 breakaways in that game for the Stars. I mean, it was crazy how bad the defense was. But again, when the Blues defense is playing their game and they're keeping up with the play, they're hard to beat and they're hard to get around. And then you got a guy like Jordan Binnington back there who's backing them up. And I think you guys could say the same thing in San Jose, that if this defense is on their game, they're hard to beat. And when Martin Jones is on his game, look out. The Sharks are a real contender.
So Laurel gave a suggestion for the Blues, a possible X factor. If they have any new guys who have never scored an NHL goal, send them out against the Sharks. There's a little bit of a meme. I don't know if you guys are aware of it on our side. It just seems like a lot of players get their first ever NHL goal against the Sharks, or if they're on a schneid. It just feels that way. But Kevin, what are you feeling for this series? I don't know if you can hear me.
Kevin, what do you think of a difference maker for both clubs? And
I don't know. Well, I don't know about for both clubs. I mean, I guess if you're going to go that route, depth. Depth. And I mean, that's such a cliche thing to say in the playoffs, but here we are now 2 rounds in going into the third round. And that's a factor at this point, especially with the Sharks with their injuries so far. I mean, obviously Joe Pavelski missed 2 weeks of hockey because of his head injury, and Evander Kane is clearly playing with something that I believe is a shoulder injury, because he's been a lights out penalty killer for the Sharks, which has been fantastic, but he has been completely unnoticeable in the offensive zone. And I think it's because he can't play the body at all, leading to maybe a shoulder injury. You're looking at the back end, Erik Karlsson. Everyone's been dogging Erik Karlsson lately. Let's not forget that he tore his groin in the second half of the season, and he's still trying to, you don't just recover from that after 20 games. Like, he's still playing hurt. He's been okay. He needs to be better, but I'm not going to expect him to be Ottawa Erik Karlsson at this point coming off that injury. Brent Burns had a foot injury the second half of the season. I think he's back to health, but I don't know. Donskoy hurt. Kevin Labank's been so in and out of the lineup, playing 15 minutes one night and 8 minutes the next, that I don't know what's going on with him. So to me, health is a huge issue this deep into the playoffs. And then from the Blues standpoint, I don't know what their injuries have been, but I'm not trying to curse the guy, but poor Jaden Schwartz is always due for a significant injury every 4 months. So
yeah. It used to be with Schwartz, that the Blues win as Schwartz win, and he would get injured and the team would fall off a cliff after some great play. But he's knock on wood for us Blues fans. He's been relatively healthy. And the Blues in general have been relatively healthy. There's some question as to Ryan O'Reilly, if he's got something that's nagging him, or if he's just out of energy from putting the team on the shoulders for the entire first half of the season and carrying them. But health is always the X factor, right?
Yeah, I think if you I don't know if you guys have noticed at all about the faceoffs with O'Reilly. He was a pretty dominant faceoff guy during the season, and
always is among the leaders.
Right. But in the playoffs, especially against Dallas, he's kind of dropped off. I'm not sure what the percentage is, but it always seems like he's only winning like 42% of the draws, something like that. He's under 500, which is unlike him quite a bit. So that's why the speculation is that maybe he's got something with the wrist or something with the shoulder, broken finger, something that's kind of affecting his face-off ability. So that's something that we talked about on our show, as far as if he's just fatigued, kind of weak, maybe the 3 days off is going to help him. But we'll see.
That's a great key, though, because, I mean, looking at the Sharks in games 5 and 7 at home against Colorado, I believe the Sharks were 63 and 65% or something on the draw at home. So, yeah, if Ryan O'Reilly's dealing with some kind of injury that he can't win faceoffs, that might be a big part of the series.
It would affect a lot of. I mean, it would. Obviously affect a lot of draws, but they do have Bozak, who is quite good at the draws as well. Who he did take a lot of draws, to be honest, against Dallas, and he was he took the draw for the game winner in double overtime that the Blues ended up winning. So in the Star Zone. So
yeah, you look back at the Winnipeg series, and something we talked about on the show was they were icing the puck too much towards the end of the game, and they asked somebody with the Blues, and it may even just been an announcer that was commenting on it, but they said they can do that because they have Ryan O'Reilly back there to win faceoffs every time in the defensive zone. That just was not the case against Dallas. So it'll be interesting to see which Ryan O'Reilly we see in game 1.
And the Sharks can definitely make teams look bad on the faceoff. They can occasionally make them look good. I know against Colorado, they had a lot of really dominant streaks against them. So, Eric, give your X factors next. We should do a round the horn on predictions for the series, and then I think we'll have to figure out what our wager is, what's gonna be on the line around here.
Yeah, my thing, I think, is more so than anything, it's going to be special teams, especially on the side of San Jose. I think power play is something that the Sharks desperately need. You just can't live with a 4-minute outburst of scoring. I think the Sharks definitely need to get their power play going. I also think they need to make sure they have puck possession and get the points open to set up those tip jobs that from Joe Pavelski, which I think kind of hurt the Blues 3 years ago. So those are kind of my factors I'm looking into in that. But it is time. Let's do the prognostication portion of the program. We'll start with our guests, and I'll start with Bill. Your predictions. We'll go with your team and in how many games. But if you want to add something else that you think we could see in the series, by all means, have at it. You're muted, Bill.
Yeah, you're muted, Bill.
Don't worry, it happens to me all the time too.
Yeah, no, I have all these annoying dog sounds that I'm trying to keep you guys from having to listen to.
It's actually all him too.
Do you also have questionable internet? Maybe you and Eric are long lost
Shut
brothers
up,
separated
Chris.
at birth.
No, I have very strong internet. We've got the good inner tubes at my place.
I thought they had internet
it's possible.
away.
So I'll give my prediction. I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm going to say Blues in 5, just because it's I think that it's a bolder prediction than I normally give. I have a feeling that the Blues will find a way to work through and win some games early and be able to close it out quickly. I think at the end of the day, Binnington, you guys haven't encountered Binnington. He's going to frustrate the Sharks quite a bit, and the Blues will find a way to get it done in 5.
Yeah, I think that's a solid prediction. I'll add that I think that okay, first of all, everyone's bracket's screwed up. I think we can all agree on that.
Yeah, we are all bad at prognosticating, and anyone who says they are not is a liar this year.
Yeah, I love how manly you look while you're holding a cat. That's adorable.
This is show favorite Edgar right here. The audience is probably very happy to see this right now, but yes.
Yeah, so so our brackets are all screwed up, but I will say I'm going to gloat a little bit here. That is one thing I picked right. I did pick the Western Conference Final, Sharks and Blues, and I don't even want to tell you guys this, but I did pick the Sharks to win the Cup. So the gut in me wants to stick with my original pick and say Sharks in 7, but obviously I picked that before this playoff round started. So I'm going to say I'm going to go with Blues in 7. I think it's going to go 7 games, and I think it's going to be solid. I'm not a fan of doing the whole prediction thing. I think either of these teams win. I'm not going to be shocked, and I'm just hoping for a good series. I mean, I think that's what we're going to see, but for Blues fans at least, that 16 series was a little bit of a letdown. We all kind of feel like the Sharks kind of dominated from beginning to end, except for maybe game 1. I don't think we're going to see that this time. I think it's going to be evenly matched, and it's going to be exciting games all the way through.
I just hope both teams have fun. That's what I'm looking at here.
Can we all get trophies?
Yeah, can we get
feel like I'm in Little League
around here?
I was gonna,
if you will.
I was gonna say Blues in 7, but after the Sharks banner fell down behind off the window, that's a sign. So I'm gonna say Blues in 6. They'll win it in St. Louis. I don't think it's any shocker that the 3 Blues guys are picking the Blues. I mean, I'm pretty sure I know who you guys are gonna pick for yours too. So. But I think with the goaltending situation, the way Binnington's played, I see no reason why he should falter. He's been doing it for so long now. I wouldn't pick against it. I wouldn't pick against him doing it. Keeping that up. And like I said before, I think the special team can be very interesting. As I can, Bill's like he stepped on his dog's tail. I think the special teams are going to be very interesting. I'm going to, and see how that plays out, because the power plays are pretty similar. The penalty kills have not been great overall. I mean, I'm not, going into short last 3, 4, 5 game trends, But overall in the playoffs so far, penalty kills and the power plays are not that different. So that'll be interesting. And I'm scared of Burns. Burns seems to do us in. And Pavelski, who does everyone in, him and those damn tips in front of the net just drives me bananas. And he's back, so that's a nice. I think he was mentioned as an X factor. So I'm curious to see how he's going to play, and how he can handle with his injury. How he can handle. Probably it's going to be a pretty physical series. So. We'll see how that plays out. But I like the Blues in 6. But like Jeff said, it's not going to be surprising to me if the Sharks do win the series, because I mean it's to be honest, it's kind of a toss up. To be fair, so I think that's me. Blues in 6.
All right. So Bill goes Blues in 5. Jeff says Blues in 7. Kurt says Blues in 6. Mr. Kevin Lacey.
First off, as I just mentioned in the chat, Tim Heed's mom literally texted me about 2 minutes ago, and she says hello. And we're wondering, will Tim Heed and his, for his new baby daughter, will he ever get in the lineup? I don't know. It would be great. He'd probably get 3.5 minutes, but hey, you maybe you get yourself on the cup that way with your 3.5 minutes. I don't know.
I think it's a minimum game, not a minimum amount of minutes.
Jeff said earlier, I picked Sharks in 6 over Dallas in my bracket. And now that the Blues are here, I'm like, oh man. And I'm really torn between two destinies, because I think that this might be the reverse fortune. This is karma's payback for 2016, and I think the Blues could win it in 6. But at the same time, I also feel like the way the first 2 rounds have gone, the Sharks can become the first team in NHL history to win the Stanley Cup in 28 games, which is absolutely ridiculous. But just for that story, Sharks in 7.
All right. And you know what? I wouldn't be surprised by that. Chris, what do you think?
4 game 7s would be the most Sharks way ever to win the cup, because this team has jerked us around in every possible way. I mean, these guys understand their team has done the same thing to them. I'm sure they have many stories and many the fill in the blank, goal or the whatever. We all know it. We all had those stories. Realistically, it's hard to predict, because both teams that are here, they're good. Like, the Blues are here because they're good. The Sharks are here because they're good. They clearly have something if they've gotten this far. It's not easy to win 1 round, let alone 2. I'm going to go with Sharks in 6. I don't know. I can't justify that pick. But honestly, it's probably better than most of the picks I've tried to justify so far in the playoffs. So I will go Sharks in 6.
All right, Chris, thank you very much. As you hold precious little Edgar. So sweet.
That is honestly the most adorable thing I've ever seen. I'm screenshotting that, and it's gonna be my background.
Sadly, I just realized the little thing, the little overlay on the actual broadcast, you can barely actually see him. So maybe I should hold him a little higher so people can actually see what you guys have been seeing. There you go. So yeah, he's not happy. I awoke him from his slumber, but yes, he's been hanging out here.
Gotcha. As for me, oh boy, I mean, these are 2 great teams that really have a destiny. I could totally see the Blues pulling this off, and while I'd be bummed, I'd be thrilled for St. Louis Blues fans who haven't seen a cup final in 49 years. I mean, that's craziness to do with the great teams that they've always had. For me, I think it comes down to, will the Blues cover Burns and Erik Karlsson when they're in the offensive zone? Both defensemen have been dynamite throughout the 2 rounds, and now that Pavelski's back, they have a target to not shoot right on net. Hurdle's been a great one, but Pavelski's is the master at tipping. And also, there's some guy named Joe Thornton that everybody's going to be talking about, especially since we want to win it for Jumbo. Get your t-shirt here at tealtownusa.com. Only $25. But beside the point, with the shameless self-promotion there, I think I think it can be the Sharks time again. And I know we said 7-6. I have a feeling if the Sharks can jump on the Blues in the first two in San Jose, I think they could possibly get it done in 5. So I'll be a little bold and say Sharks in 5, despite all the injuries, and the Sharks can get some much needed rest in before the Cup final. So that's why I will go with. Chris, you have a wager proposal that you want to go with our little wager?
Yeah, so we've gone a little back and forth. I know, like, I don't know if Eric wants to have a logo over his face again this season. Oh, somebody's echoing.
With our little wager?
Yeah, so we've gone a little back and forth. I know, like,
who
somebody
that is.
needs to mute.
Kevin?
Eric wants to have a
Evans.
logo over his face again this season. Somebody needs to mute. Somebody. Okay,
How's that?
there we go. So we gone a little back and forth. Eric had their logo over his face once or twice this season. Poor Eric. But rather than do a logo thing, because I know we all got to worry about our branding and promotion and all that yada yada. How about this? So one, the loser has to ship a case of beer from their respective state. Good stuff. No Budweiser, guys.
It's okay. We won't buy it anyway.
You know, let's say 12 beers from your respective state to the winner, and make sure it's good shit, nothing mediocre. And then I assume we'll play at least 3 times next season. If the winner of this series also wins that game, the loser has to open their respective shows with a theme song. So I think there's a Let's Go Blues song or something like that. Some kind of sound effect and or song promoting the other team and kind of just bask in the humiliation. So that would be my proposal. So in other words, yeah, you still have to, like, if that team goes 4-0 the next season or however many games, they win them all, well, they don't get the extra humiliation, but they have to, kind of bend the knee next season if they lose. How about that?
That's
All right,
good.
that means you guys have to play Gloria.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fair.
Can I ask this question? Where did that come from?
It's is it Edmondson and Steen and a couple other players in the Blues roster were in a bar. It was in New Jersey, right, guys? I think it was in New Jersey.
Yes, New Jersey.
Yeah, and they were in the bar, and the bar was playing 80s music, and the bar was requesting Gloria, and they played it. The bar was singing along. The Blues players loved it. I think they requested it again, and they had a great time with the people there at the bar, and so they won. They played. They won that next night, and they played it after the game in the locker room. And then I think they went on that 11-game win streak about that point.
Yep.
So that's kind of how that, and they just kept it, and that's where the phenomenon started.
Okay, so I guess we have to play Gloria. I assume we'll have to make you play 6 a.m. since AJ would want to curse you guys with that. But the loser has to open their show anytime that that the respective winner beats them the next season. So if they go perfectly, well, there you don't get the extra humiliation. But if they do, there you go.
I do have another one sent in from a listener. Our friend Mike Pepping, actually a former co-host of mine on another show, he says since we all do our show live, the losing team should have to wear dresses for special live episodes, like some really floral crap with wigs and purses.
Huh.
So that was his response.
I'm gonna if we put that to a vote, I'm gonna say that's gonna not happen.
I'm okay with that not happening.
I told him I would mention it, but I like the other one much better.
Much better.
Yeah. Now, question with the Gloria song or any other copyrighted song, you played on YouTube, it could flag your account. So.
Yeah,
That's true.
We'll have
He
to
could
find,
play our
the
Let's Go
karaoke
Blues
version
song.
here, so.
Yeah, we may have to come up with some non-copyrighted thing, but I would say some kind of ritual humiliation for the loser.
We do have a pretty good we do have a pretty comical song that we close the show with that we did get permission to use from Head East. the band. So
Kevin says we might have to sing it. Okay, that might.
And
Yeah.
let's be real here, Chris. It has been a long-standing tradition for us to have a bet on the show, and somebody has to sing.
Yeah. Bring that one up. That one's deep in the archives. But okay, yeah. So some kind, I think we can work out the finer details off
Yeah.
there. But beer plus some kind of ritual humiliation.
that works for me. I'm good with that.
Agreed.
It's a
All
wager,
on-
guys.
all
This
in.
is on air. We can't retract it. We have, I believe, about 40 witnesses, so it's all agreed to.
You know what's if the Sharks do somehow by some miracle of Mother Nature happen to win the series,
Oh, jeez.
I'm gonna enjoy helping pick out the beer. That'd be fun for me.
Yes,
I'm
me
gonna
too.
say that we'll get together and we'll each grab like 3 or 4 bottles of something and
Kurt, we expect the beer to be full, not already drunk when it's shipped to us.
these are full bottles we're talking about, not like the coin banks, the slots on the top with a can.
Yeah.
Wow.
I guess our punishment also could be is you could just send us a case of Budweiser and we have to drink it.
Well, I'd at least make a Bud Light Orange for you.
Bud Light Orange, yeah.
I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy.
Oh, stop.
Yeah, we won't go that low. That's a little too low.
So, in other words, you won't want to wish it on the Vegas Golden Knights. They could use it to get over.
They could use a little ritual humiliation.
Man, you got a YouTube commenter that's really giving us a number, Mr. CD Dangle. I don't know if I want to repeat what he said there, but he's talking some
Oh.
smack on us.
How does
That's
has
a show joke.
has he been like in studio? How does he know this? How does he know that? 'Cause I mean, like,
I
where
thought-
is he
I thought the
have a
camera-
window? Are my
Kurt-
blinds not closed?
Kurt, you always tell me the cameras are off at that point.
Well, my windows, my blind. I don't have blinds on my window behind me. So maybe
For fast context, we refer to our kind of let's talk about the out of town scores as the wraparound for the
Yes, it
longest time,
should
and
be
then
called the wraparound for this main reason.
because the chat liked it better, we started calling it the reach around, and it became the reach around.
nice. Well,
Need I say more?
Which is why I had for the longest time I had the pinned tweet on my Twitter timeline said Tomasz Hurdle with the reach around. So
Jeez.
well, I think we have a pretty good one of those classic bad rally songs that the teams used to play in like the 60s and 70s. They had written for them, and they're kind of hokey and weird. So we have one of those that we got permission to use. So maybe we'll use that one. We'll see.
Yeah. See, we even have, if I can pull it up, we even have a whole little intro, and yeah. Oh, Al Martin. Don't talk about Vancouver. You're welcome for that one. But yeah, this is our little intro for the.
Have the goddamn common courtesy to give him a reach around.
So that's our little intro to our recap of the night in the NHL. And speaking of which, Boston won. What a shock. All right. So in case you missed anything or you want to watch this again, check this out at tealtownusa.com or your favorite podcatcher, whether it's iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, Stitcher, TuneIn, and of course now Spotify. By all means, also make sure you hit that subscribe button to our YouTube channel. We want to thank the over 1,507 subscribers. We definitely got a huge boost from Game 7. Please tell all your friends, tell all your Blues friends. I know I have plenty out there, along with you guys, Stephanie, Leah, and a bunch of others. Be gentle to us, and I know there's probably somebody singing Gloria somewhere into my face pretty soon. So final thoughts, people, and where the people can find you before we call this one a night.
We're talking us.
Yes, we'll start with you, Kurt.
We're Let's Go Blues Radio. You can find us at letsgoblues.com/radio. Twitter handle is at LGB Radio, and my personal one is at Kurt Price. We're very active on Twitter. So give us a follow on iTunes, Google Play, actually Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, you name it.
Yeah,
Bill?
and you could find. Oh, I'm just gonna jump in here because
fine, Jeff. Go right
that's
ahead.
just
We
what
wanna
I
leave you out,
do.
no.
That's what I do, baby. You can find me on Twitter at jponder94, and I will add that Bill and Kurt are fun people to interact with on Twitter. So Bill's about to give you his Twitter handle, but you can also find me on Facebook. And yeah, I want to thank everybody for having us on. Always fun talking to you guys, and we'll definitely be in touch here soon.
For sure.
Yeah.
Bill?
Yeah, so I'm at Billy Blue Note on Twitter. I will say that I've this postseason I have deleted more tweets that I've actually tweeted, just because I'm trying not to tweet negative emotion, because that feels like that's all I'm ever inclined to do. But as we get into the series, the Blues just made the conference final outside of a 15-year time span for the first time in franchise history. I'm excited. I'm going to be engaged. Looking forward to chatting more on Twitter during this round.
Excellent, Bill. Thank you guys so much. Mr. Kevin Lacey?
I'm at Kevin Lacey 22. I'm the guy who's still trying to tweet about the San Jose Barracuda, despite the fact that they are long gone from the AHL playoffs. So yeah, Stanley Cup or bust, Sharks. Woohoo! Let's do this.
All right. Thanks, Kevin. Appreciate it. And Chris JWS?
Well, you can find me on Twitter at ChrisJWS. I'm often on there tweeting from various locations in the world. I can't always disclose where. And my final thoughts are let's hope for some good hockey. At the very least, give us a good series. We're used to the heartbreak, so just make it entertaining.
Absolutely. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at PuckGuy14. Of course, our Twitter and Facebook and Instagram is tealtownusa, where you can go to tealtownusa.com and get one of our fancy Win It for Jumbo t-shirts. Very fancy. I'm sure the Blues guys would like one of them because of that beautiful skunk stripe.
Maybe it would be included in the beer.
There we go.
Package.
Yeah, well, we'll make sure to deliver one to you after next season then.
Can I say something without all of Blues fandom hating me? I like Joe Thornton.
Yeah, bud.
Because you got the
I'm
beard.
a big fan. I always have been, even when he was with Boston.
You like Jamie Benn too, though.
I like him when we're not playing against Jamie Benn.
Well, that's liking him.
I hated him the
totally
last 7
understandable.
games.
So that will be doing it for us. tealtownusa.com is where you can find the replay of this. There's a new Pucknologist that's going to also come out on Friday. I believe there's also Teal Tinted Glasses on Friday night to check that out. And then, of course, we'll be back with you after Game 1, which is a 5 p.m. start on the Pacific time zone on your local NBC station. So in the Bay Area, it is NBC Bay Area. We're in Sacramento, KCRA. And who's your affiliate, guys, in St. Louis
For what again?
for NBC?
KSDK.
You can check them out there. That's a 7 p.m. start for you guys, 5 p.m. for us out in the West Coast. So let's go blues.com. Thank you very much.
Thanks
Chris,
for having me.
Kevin, thank you as well. Check us all out on the Twitter and the Instagram, and we appreciate it. And of course, keep it real, keep it teal, keep it real teal. Have a great night, everyone, and good luck to the best team. Go Sharks. Good night, everyone.
Let's go.